Union Town, T-Town, touchdown, Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome into a new week of The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I'm your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama. Be sure to hit that like button while you are here. Hit that subscribe button as well. If you are a subscriber, hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. And I'm here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. And on today's episode, I do want to recap the Crimson Tide's recruiting weekend. I also want to preview the Crimson Tide's upcoming recruiting weekend, with the side hosting a couple of 5-star prospects, including 5-star quarterback Arch Manning. Before I get an opportunity to dive into some of the prospects who will be joining Manning on this weekend, I do want to remind you guys that you can get involved with the show by calling us on our recruiting question voicemail line at 205-984-3222. Call that number, leave your recruiting question via voicemail, and it could be answered on a future episode of The Process. That number will be located on the string throughout the duration of today's show. But now we're going to dive into a couple of recruiting updates from this past weekend. We're going to start with a familiar name for Crimson Tide fans. We're talking about Kirkpatrick, who played for Alabama from 2009 to 2011 before being drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the 2012 draft. His son, actually, Kirkpatrick Jr, was on the campus of the University of Alabama for an unofficial visit. He's actually visited Alabama a couple of times over the last couple of months. He's a 2024 prospect to know at the moment after picking up an offer from Marshall University on Sunday. It was his first D1 offer, but it looks as if that is not going to be his last offer for sure. He's a physical defensive back who really had a big sophomore season. In terms of some comparisons between him and his dad, the thing that really stands out to me from his sophomore film was his physicality. I think he's a very physical tackler, so he has some physicality to his game, continuing to grow in coverage as a safety. So I think he's going to be a prospect to watch out for in terms of the defensive back position in the 2024 recruiting class. You guys can learn a little bit more about his interest in the Crimson Tide, him possibly following in his dad's footstep in an interview I did with him over at touchdownalabama.com. Another young defensive back who was on the campus of the University of Alabama recently is 2025 defensive back Jalen Bale out of Grayson High School in Georgia. Got his first look at the Crimson Tide. Actually had an opportunity to travel around Tuscaloosa a little bit to experience the town as well. Like I said, he is a 2025 defensive back to know, and just looking at his film, that is his freshman film, it does not look like freshman film in terms of his reaction skills, in terms of his movement and his coverage. I remember one play in particular, it was a stream play that he read all the way. So you can tell this is a kid who has a high football IQ at a very young age. I think he's going to be easily one of the top defensive backs in the 2025 recruiting class. The Crimson Tide are currently trying to build a relationship with him by getting him on campus, letting him experience a visit, and also letting him experience spring practice and letting him take a couple of pictures in the locker room, trying to basically build a rapport with him early on in his recruitment. Has several D1 offers at the moment, including the offer from home state school Georgia. So you know his recruitment is going to be crazy in the future in terms of some of the offers I feel that he's going to obtain. I feel that an offer from the Crimson Tide is something that could definitely happen in the future. You can hear about the first look that he got at Alabama over the weekend over at touchdownalabama.com. Be sure to stay locked in with our website as well, because we do post a lot of updates from multiple guys and multiple recruiting classes. But speaking of defensive backs, an update I do want to provide also is from 5-star defensive back Tony Mitchell in the 2023 recruiting class, who recently dropped a top 5 and included the Tide, of course, along with Florida, Georgia, Texas A&M, Oregon. Just taking a look at his recruitment, I think it is pretty open at the moment when it comes to those 5 programs. I still feel Alabama's in a good position. I know some may feel that he has visited all of these other programs recently and may feel that Alabama is not at the top of his recruitment, but I still feel the Tide are in a solid position with Mitchell. Just taking a look at his recruitment, Alabama has hosted him so many times over his recruitment over the last couple of seasons. He actually picked up his first offer from Mississippi State when he was an 8th grader, and the Crimson Tide offered him a couple of years later, I think around his 9th or 10th grade year. So they have had an offer on the table for Mitchell for a long time now, and he has visited it a lot of times. So it's not surprising and it's not weird that he's visiting all of these other programs like Florida, like Georgia, like Texas A&M recently, because he still has to get a feel for those programs. He has a great relationship with those coaches, and I think the best thing for him is to get on campus to get that feel as well. Just taking a look at some of the schools he has visited, I don't think any of the schools listed in his top 5 has hosted him more than Alabama has. He actually visited Alabama earlier this month for the Crimson Tide's Junior Day as well. So I feel the Tide are still in a solid position with the 5-star defensive back out of Thompson High School in Alabaster, Alabama. We're switching our focus back to the Crimson Tide's last recruiting weekend. 4-star offensive lineman Ola Aden was on the campus of the University of Alabama. The 4-star offensive lineman in the 2023 recruiting class was on his 3rd trip to Tuscaloosa. It actually was a 2-day visit, as he had the opportunity to stay on campus a day. When you take a look at Aden's recruitment, I think it is still open as well. He does not have a top school list, but he does plan to have one over the next couple of weeks. He told me that in early April he could release a top 4 or a top 5. Of course, he will officially visit Alabama on June 10th, so the Crimson Tide will get him back on campus in June for his 4th visit. Like I said, this past weekend's visit was his 3rd trip to Tuscaloosa. He was on campus for camp last summer. He got on campus in November after picking up an offer from the Tide. He was on campus last weekend. Of course, he told me that this past weekend's visit was another great one. Had an opportunity to get a deeper look at the Crimson Tide's football program, had an opportunity to attend practice, attend the team's offensive line meeting. He said he was really impressed with how quickly things moved in the meeting. He said he really liked how competitive the Crimson Tide's offensive linemen were during spring practice. So the Crimson Tide had an opportunity to get one of their top offensive lineman targets on campus, give him that deeper look, and they will get him back on campus on June 10th. When he released a top school list over the next couple of weeks, I feel that the Crimson Tide will be included in that list no matter how small that list is. Even if it's a top 2, I feel that the Tide will be in that top 2, but he said he will most likely release a top 4 or a top 5. He also told me that he has a commitment time frame. He wants to make a decision before his senior season begins, so we know that he wants to make a decision most likely in June, July, possibly early August when it comes to his commitment time frame. Like I said, Ola Aden is one of the Crimson Tide's top offensive lineman targets in the 2023 recruiting class. Definitely a name to pay attention to. I feel we talk about him on every episode of the process, especially over the last couple of months. But now we're going to talk about some of the guys who will be on campus this weekend. And we're going to start this discussion off by talking about a 4-star wide receiver out of Florida. And I'm talking about Hakeem Williams, a long wide receiver at 6'4", who the Crimson Tide are going after in the 2023 recruiting class. We take a look at Williams' game. I was just talking about him a little bit here. He's a physical wide receiver, like I said, long. He's a guy who can go up and make those 50-50 catches easily because he is 6'4". Has some good speed on him as well in terms of what he can do after the catch. He's going to continue to add on some weight. He's going to continue to get bigger, so I think his ceiling is very high in terms of him continuing to pack on muscle, continuing to fill out his frame to get stronger and be more physical. So I think he's going to have an opportunity to grow into a complete wide receiver in the future. Definitely one of the top wide receivers in the 2023 recruiting class. I think it is really good for Alabama that they are getting him on campus this weekend. It's going to be the first time that they have gotten him on campus since he picked up an offer from the Tide last year around this time. So I think this is a visit that could go a long way for the Crimson Tide, possibly working their way up in his recruitment. He does have them listed in his top school list at the moment. I think it's a pretty big one, a top 10 or a top 11. Nick Saban visited his high school when he was visiting schools over the last couple of months. I think it was in January or February when he got an opportunity to visit his high school in February and got an opportunity to make sure that Hakeem Williams knew that they were very much still interested in him. So the Crimson Tide, I feel, could work their way into a better position with Hakeem Williams after this visit. I wouldn't say going into this visit that they're in an awesome position, but I feel that they can improve their position for sure on this weekend. A couple of signal callers and the guys who could be throwing the ball to Hakeem Williams in the future will also be on campus, including the guy that everyone is talking about, 5-star quarterback Arch Manning. His recruitment is a bit of a mystery in terms of just access to him that a lot of people get. So I feel that the Crimson Tide are still in a good position for Arch Manning, of course, but there are other schools like Texas, like Georgia, like Florida, like Ole Miss, of course, are still heavily involved in this recruitment. Texas looks to be in a really good position. I think I've laid out in the past why I feel that Texas could be a good spot for Arch Manning. Ole Miss, of course, the family legacy in terms of his grandfather going there, in terms of his dad going there as well, also his uncle Eli Manning going there. So when you take a look at these programs, there are a lot of reasons why he would choose them. And just taking a look at Alabama's chances, I made the argument for Alabama for Arch Manning a couple of times on the process, and I still feel that argument is very true. Just taking a look at what Alabama has done, not even at the quarterback position, but their player development, but most recently at the quarterback position, just taking a look at their success in the NFL in terms of having 3 guys who previously played at Alabama being starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So Arch Manning has all of that to look at when you take a look at his recruitment. But I think this weekend could be another step towards Alabama improving their position with him. But like I said a lot of times as well, he's not the only quarterback that Alabama is going after in this 2023 recruiting class. He will be joined by Dylan Lonergan on this weekend. Lonergan is a 4-star quarterback out of Georgia who the Crimson Tide have been recruiting over the last couple of months as well. Taking a look at Lonergan, I think he's more of a dual threat quarterback, especially when you consider some of the other guys Alabama's looking at the future and at the moment when you take a look at Eli Holstein and also Arch Manning. So Dylan Lonergan is going to be a guy to pay attention to this weekend, as the Crimson Tide will get him on campus. He is a Georgia product, and I think he's going to be one of those signal callers Alabama fans need to know about outside of Manning. I feel that Alabama's in a better position than most at the moment. I feel they improved their position for Eli Holstein over the weekend. They're in a solid position with Arch Manning. They're also in a good position with Dylan Lonergan. So the Crimson Tide have some guys to pick from in the 2023 recruiting class when it comes to the quarterback position at the moment. And both of those guys will be on campus. They will be joined by 5-star defensive end Jaden Wayne as well. Wayne is a product of Lincoln High School in Tacoma, Washington. One of the top edge rushing prospects in the 2023 recruiting class. Has always spoken highly of Alabama, of his relationship with their coaching staff, has a good relationship with the Tide's wide receiver coach Harmon Wiggins. I think this will be a great opportunity for him to improve his position with the Crimson Tide's new outside linebacker coach Coleman Hutzler. They have talked on the phone, of course, but getting the opportunity to see him in person on campus, I think will go a long way in Jaden Wayne's recruitment. I feel that Alabama is in a really, really good position for Jaden Wayne. A great visit could put them in the position to be the absolute leader for the Washington product. So that is the development that I'll watch for when it comes to his recruitment on this weekend when he visits the University of Alabama. But thank you guys so much for joining me today on this episode of The Process. Always be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Subscribers, before you leave, turn on your notifications by hitting the notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription today. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Get your hands on our yearly print magazine issue. Also get an opportunity to read our in-depth scouting reports on each Tide commit and each recruiting class. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device, or to the Apple App Store if you have an Apple device, to download the Touchdown Alabama app. With that app, breaking news notifications will be sent to your mobile device by the staff here at touchdownalabama.com. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.